Welcome back to Face the State. He is a key figure in Connecticut history, the first black person elected to represent Connecticut in the U.S. Congress. And with us today is the former congressman from our great state, Gary Franks. Congressman Franks, good to see you back here in the program.
Good morning, Dennis. Good to be back.
So everyone's been wondering, where have you been for the last 12 or so years since you left Connecticut?
Longer than that. I first got elected to office 30 years ago as a city alderman, yes, and run for office in Connecticut 10 times after that. But since my defeat in '98, I have been in the Maryland area. I've lived in Howard County, Maryland for about 12 years. And I have been teaching at Georgetown University for about 10 years and at Hampton University as a visiting professor for about 12 years, and have done some consulting over the years and raised my 3 children.
As I mentioned, I'm
an empty nester now.
You're an empty nester. Well, they're all grown up now.
That is right. That is right.
You know, as I mentioned, you were the first black person elected to represent Connecticut in Congress. And
which was quite an honor, and I still thank the people of the 5th District for that honor. It's a tremendous honor.
And that still stands. No one's been elected after that. Does that surprise you at all, that you didn't pave the way for others?
Well, Dennis, in a way I did. We had J.C. Watts that followed me.
Well, in Connecticut or New England,
in Connecticut, yes. We haven't had anyone else, but overall, from a national perspective, we've had quite a few black Republicans who have followed. But I would like to see that change. Andre Bogartner is on the radar screen as a state rep, a young whippersnapper, and I wish him well, and we'll be meeting with him soon, and I'm sure others will follow.
And that's one of your goals, your mission right now, is to get more black voters involved in the Republican Party.
That's exactly right, Dennis. I believe that the Republican Party can get 25% of the black vote in 2016. We have a Republican president. And if we can do well in the state of Connecticut, we would have a Republican governor. Too many times our Republican candidates have won 130 or 140 towns in Connecticut and have lost because of the urban areas, Bridgeport, Waterbury, Danbury, Hartford, etc. And we can change that, and that is my intention. I'm starting a think tank at a major university. Right now I'm negotiating with 2 to come up with some meat, some specifics that will actually give people a reason to support the Republican Party. And also, eventually I'm going to also start a super PAC.
Why don't Republicans do better in the cities?
Well, I think they have to work harder there. The message has not gotten there. I think that you start with talking about how it's not practical for 90-some% of all blacks to be Democrat. It's like going to the gym, Dennis, and having a pickup game. You have 10 guys over there, and 9 guys join one team, and you try to have a basketball game. You can't. So the system doesn't work for you if you do not participate in both parts. I tell my students, if you show up for half of my classes, you're going to fail. So if you participate in half of the political process, the Democrat Party, it's not going to work well for you. So from a practical perspective, we're going to talk about that historical perspective. The last time that we had a situation where 90-some-odd% of black people voted in one party, it led to Jim Crow and it led to lynchings back in the 19th century. Well, today the reverse has happened. You have 90-some-odd% of black people voting for the Democrat Party, and things have gone, I think, somewhat badly for blacks. You have very high unemployment for black citizens nationwide, the highest in our country's history. You have poverty levels at a record high. You have 40% of our children of color, black, are in poverty. You have far fewer black males going to college today. Segregation in our schools are getting worse in some areas. Housing segregation is getting worse. Not to mention what's happened with the Zimmerman situation in Florida, and et cetera, et cetera. So there's a big gap for the Republican Party to be able to offer specific ideas that will help the black community, help the white community, help our country. And shame on me if I don't participate in it, Dennis. When I won, I got the black vote and I got the white vote. When I lost, and that was quite frequently too, I lost the white vote and I lost the black vote. That's healthy. That's healthy, Dennis. Right? So.
The only black presidential candidate running this year is, in fact, a Republican, Ben Carson, who is a college buddy of yours.
That's right. I've known Ben since we were both about 20 years old. So Ben's a good man, but I have a lot of friends in the race. Jeb Bush and I are good friends, and I'm very close to the Bush family. Santorum and Kasich, I served in Congress with them for a number of years, so I wish them all well.
Do you think Republicans have a chance of winning this year?
Well, I think that we do the right things. In 16, we should win.
Too many candidates, you think?
Well, there's a lot of
16,
folks running.
17?
Yeah, I guess so. Well, that'll whittle its way down because obviously the top-tier candidates will be better financed and the others will eventually dry up.
What are the black Republicans whom you know saying about Donald Trump?
Well, he's an interesting character, but I think that what we all have to remember is that Donald Trump is talking specifics. And I think that blacks and whites and browns are all saying, hey, tell me exactly what you're going to do. You may not like what he has to say, but at least he's saying some things that people can relate to. But the Republicans, the race is far from being over. And once again, I'm looking forward to the next debate, quite frankly.
10, 15 years ago, some analysts would say the first black president will be a Republican, and they were looking at Colin Powell back in the day.
And I had my money on him as well.
Turned out to be a Democrat. Who will be the first black Republican president, do you think?
Dennis,
who's out there right now? I'm
very biased. I'm very biased. Senator Tim Scott is a good friend of mine, and I think the world of him. I think that he's had a very challenging last few months in South Carolina, where you've had the shooting of the unarmed man by a police officer. You've had the shootings in the black church of 9 individuals. You've had the controversy with the Confederate flag. That's a lot. That's a lot to have on anyone's plate as a freshman senator. And I think he's handled all of them well, and he's represented his state extremely well. But I'm not going to put pressure on him like that and tell him that he's going to be the next one or the first one. But he's a great individual. He's doing a great job.
What about a potential running mate for some of the Republicans running this year?
Well,
Tim Scott.
That's a possibility. I think they may look more toward a woman in the number 2 spot this time around. I think there are a number of outstanding individuals that could fill that void, including South Carolina again, Governor Haley, and you have a governor out in New Mexico, Governor Martinez. We have some good senators as well, one from New England, who's running for her own seat now, but you know, we have a lot of good talent out there.
What about Condoleezza?
Maybe too many, because 17 people are running for
17 people, that's a lot.
Obviously, all of them are candidates for vice president, too.
That's a lot of candidates.
And that adds Ben Carson to that list.
What about Condoleezza Rice?
Oh, outstanding lady. I think that she would be a great choice. Yes.
What is your view of Hillary Clinton? She's right now the Democratic front runner.
Well, she has some problems, and it should turn out to be somewhat interesting on the Democrat side. I haven't looked at that. Obviously, I followed it as a spectator, sure. But you know, with Vice President Biden looking at getting in, that should make things rather interesting.
Your last foray in the
Well, Bernie Sanders and we entered Congress together. So I've known Bernie for 25 years, and he's also a New Englander. He's actually stirred the pot quite a bit, enjoying huge crowds. To his I'm not sure if a socialist can actually get elected, but they have an interesting scenario playing out there, too.
Your last foray into politics was 17 years ago when you ran for the U.S. Senate and lost to Chris Dodd. Is there any political comeback for Gary Franks? You actually are younger than Barry Sanders, younger than Hillary Clinton, younger than Donald Trump.
Well, you know, Dennis, my brother was telling me that if I wanted to run for Congress in Waterbury, I have to run in New Haven, because they gerrymandered the 5th Congressional District so badly that they took out the most Republican part of Waterbury and put it in Rosa Dolores District, which is, I've always been against this gerrymandering situation. But no, I have no aspirations to run for office, but I do want to help my party and my African-American community and my country before they throw sand over my head, Dennis, and that's why I'm doing this. Because if you look at Proverbs 21st chapter, 13th verse, that just says it all. And basically, you can also look in the New Testament, where if you have a talent and you don't use it, you know, God will take it away from you, or shame on you. And I have limited talents, Dennis, but what talent I do have, I would like to be able to share and hopefully help my community and help the state of Connecticut and help this country.
What's the #1 argument you will give to your Republican friends or your black friends who are Democrats to switch to Republican?
Well, I would say look at it from a practical perspective, look at it from a historical perspective, look at it from a record perspective. The Republican Party, more Republican House members and senators voted for the Civil Rights Bill percentage-wise than Democrats during the 60s. Affirmative action was started by Richard Nixon. The teeth was placed in affirmative action, which helped me get into Yale, and it helped millions of blacks. We had a situation with school busing. Well, the Republicans came up with magnet schools that have helped our communities, and school choice and charter schools that have tried to desegregate our schools nationwide. The Republicans came up with the voucher system for housing that would help desegregate housing. So the history is very important, Dennis, but also not just the history with Abraham Lincoln. Obviously, we know that story. But we also have to put some meat in the sandwich. We have to talk about how we will create jobs. All the politicians are saying, we got to create jobs. How? We have to improve schools. How? And that's what my think tank will do, Dennis. It will actually put some meat in between the bread so that people will be able to see this is exactly the route one will take, and you will see significant change. And once again, the opportunity is very, very large because things are going so badly. And in Baltimore, it's every night it seems like there's a number of killings in Baltimore. I don't even know if we have a drug czar, but we all know that it's based on the gang activity caused by drugs. And what are we doing? What are we doing about this drug situation that we have there, killing thousands of young people, black and brown and white, and also with heroin destroying the lives of people who are just users? I mean, what are we doing about this? So that's why I would like to be able to let people realize that there's 2 points of view. That's what I would tell the black community. There's 2 points of view. There's 2 sides of every coin, and no one's perfect, but let's hear about the ideas from the other side, and let's work to promote things that can actually be implemented. So turning ideas into public policy and then implementing them is what the think tank will be doing.
Do you view yourself as an historic figure, a trailblazer?
I never thought of myself like that, Dennis, but I've been very blessed. My father had a 6th grade education, could barely read or write, and I have 3 sisters. One passed away. We have doctorate degrees. I have a brother who's a retired colonel. I have another brother who's a school teacher, and Sonia, who retired. I was fortunate enough to go to one of the greatest high schools in the state, Sacred Heart, the state champs in basketball, and very blessed to go down to Yale University, work for 3 Fortune 500 type companies in Connecticut. I've been tremendously blessed, and shame on me, and not to mention serving in Congress, which was a humongous privilege. Shame on me if I don't try to contribute in some other way. And I have no desire to see my name on any ballot anywhere. But I do have a desire to improve the conditions of the African American community and the people of this country.
So your name might not be in a ballot, but it might be on a school or a wall somewhere or a building. You never know. All right, former Congressman Gary Franks, we thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Dennis.
And best of luck.
Thank you.
The Ice Bucket Challenge. When we come back, we welcome your comments on any of these social media venues.